Last week, WikiLeaks dumped Vault 7, a trove of documents and software from the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence. I'm sure you heard of the iPhone hacks or the CIA turning your TV into a spy device, and even the efforts to pin the hacking operations on the Russians. What may not be as well known is that the CIA actually has a well-respected news outlet on their side. While we were shocked at the CIA's capabilities and the fact that it all leaked out on the internet, one media outlet attempted to calm our collective fears. The Washington Post put out articles showing that your car really isn't at risk of being hacked, that Apple already patched their software, Obama's cyber officials watched over the CIA's processes carefully, your encrypted data, it's still safe, and they even put out articles saying that the real villains were WikiLeaks and of course the Russians. Those stories should put me at ease. Thinking that my phone or TV, or as Kellyanne Conway thinks my microwave, would be spying on me, it's a scary thought. But thanks to the Washington Post, my trust in the CIA should be restored. But let's think on that for a moment. Why would the Washington Post so readily take the side of the CIA? Could it be that their owner has a massive contract with the spy agency? Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, and Amazon, negotiated a $600 million contract for Amazon to provide cloud-based servers to the CIA. You would think that the Washington Post would maybe add a disclosure about their relationship to the Amazon or to the CIA, but they don't think that that's relevant. And what about this CIA-Amazon deal? Amazon Web Services GovCloud hosts the CIA's most sensitive data. Intelligence officers have boasted about the software's ability to allow them to develop secure apps and share lines of code much quicker. Wait, develop apps and code? Like those that maybe would allow them to hack your TV or phone? Those hacks that were detailed in Vault 7? Well, that would mean that information got out of Amazon's highly touted cloud servers and into the public's hands. Gee, no wonder Bezos' Washington Post editorial board is so hard on WikiLeaks in Russia. Why would they want to advertise that their owner's prized software was not only used to build tools to spy on Americans, but that it also put those same Americans in danger by allowing these tools to be hacked? Funny enough, Amazon software also runs the Washington Post. And it is worth mentioning that the Washington Post was hacked in 2013 and 2015 by a group of hackers known as the Syrian Electronic Army. It's also important to note that in 2016, during the elections, the Washington Post made sure to continually blame the Russians, with certainty, for the leaks of the John Podesta DNC emails. But that's because the DNC leaks showed an all-too-cozy relationship between the Washington Post's reporters and John Podesta. Reporters would ask the Clinton campaign advisor for guidance on stories or give him the heads up when something may be published that he didn't like. But you didn't read about those items in the Post. Instead, they aimed their stories on the Russians. They painted a picture of a nefarious effort to undermine Podesta. They highlighted Podesta's call for an investigation into the hacking. Podesta even wrote an op-ed piece about the failings of the FBI in this Russian hacking matter. Of course, earlier this year, John Podesta was announced as a Washington Post columnist. That's convenient. And here's another little tidbit about the DNC hacking. The DNC used a company called CrowdStrike for their digital security. CrowdStrike relies on, well, you guessed it, Amazon Web Services for critical security components. Look, the WikiLeaks hacks of the CIA or DNC or by the Syrian hackers, they may not have anything to do with the fact that they all run on Amazon's cloud servers. But those connections certainly wouldn't look good in the public's eye. WikiLeaks has made a mockery of Amazon's cybersecurity. And how embarrassing would it be if maybe a simple handful of small-time hackers, whether or not they were in Russia, cracked Amazon servers? Instead, it's much, much easier to paint this as some massive covert operation from the Russians to interfere in America's politics. Amazon now has contracts with the CIA, the Healthcare.gov, NASA, the FDA, and a host of other government agencies. They use those deals as a massive selling point for their software. So Amazon has a ton to lose if the public maybe lost trust in their systems. So it's easier for them to blame Cold War supervillain Russia. What better way to deflect the blame than use one of the most powerful media outlets in the country, like the Washington Post? especially since it sits in the same city as our nation's capital, where Amazon, well, they're using massive lobbying power to gain favorable tax breaks and, of course, secure more government contracts. Now, the Washington Post's official stance is that Jeff Bezos and Amazon, they have no editorial power over the Post. But last May, the Post's own legendary reporter Bob Woodward detailed Bezos' instructions on how to cover the 2016 election. So we know that Bezos meddles in the affairs of the Washington Post, and he even directs reporters to cover stories in a certain way. So whether it's fawning over establishment Democrats or singing the praises of the CIA, Bezos' fingerprints are all over the Washington Post. So without putting a tinfoil hat on, it stands to reason that writing about increased tensions with Russia and blaming them for, well, everything would justify more intelligence spending. That in turn would mean more contracts for Amazon. With more money from the government, Bezos has more money to invest in the publication. And let's face it, blaming the Russians, it's just a sexy story. The Washington Post writers would love nothing more than to have Russia return once again as the world's supervillain. It certainly would generate a ton of clicks and, of course, a ton of ad revenue. And here's the thing you have to remember when it comes to the Washington Post. Bezos only paid $250 million for that. That's pocket change to him. Amazon brought in 3 times that amount in profit alone in the fourth quarter of 2016. So if you think a little thing like journalistic integrity will get in the way of Bezos' grand plans, you're sorely mistaken. It's sad, really. The Washington Post, once a champion of exposing government corruption, they exposed Watergate and the Pentagon Papers. Well, they're now just another bought media outlet. They tout their motto, democracy dies in darkness. But it fails to mention that when it comes to the CIA, they want the lights off.